Welcome to the Urban Herald. Today, we're doing a really deep exploration looking into the life and legacy of one of the 20th century's most, well, frankly, extraordinary figures, Nelson Mandela. His journey is just incredible. From a small village to decades in prison and then, leading South Africa. It's such a powerful story about human dignity against, well, against systemic oppression. So, as part of the Urban Herald team, our mission today is really to unpack the key insights from his story. We'll cover his early life, right through to his global impact, focusing on that resilience, the sacrifice, and his deep belief in reconciliation. Okay, let's unpack this. His journey is truly one of a kind, and we want you to really understand why. To really get a sense of the giant he became, we kind of have to go right back to the beginning. He was born Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, July 18th, 1918, in a village called Mizo in the Eastern Cape. And that name, Rolihlahla, it's pretty significant in Xhosa, isn't it? Apparently it translates directly to troublemaker.
It does, yeah. And
Yeah.
it feels incredibly prescient, doesn't it? Like it foreshadowed a life spent challenging the status quo, shaking things up.
Absolutely. And he had royal roots too, right? Madiba clan, Thembu tribe. His father was a chief.
That's right. His father, Gadla Henry Mfekanizwa, was a chief and a counselor. But there was early injustice there, too. His father actually lost his position after a dispute with a white magistrate. That forced the family to move to Kwanu.
Wow. So even as a child, he saw that kind of arbitrary power firsthand. That must have stuck with him.
Oh, absolutely. What's fascinating here is how these seemingly small acts of early injustice and his exposure to traditional governance planted the very first seeds of his lifelong commitment. His formal education started at a mission school there in Kwanu. And interestingly, that's where he got the English name Nelson from his teacher, Miss Medingen.
Just giving it to him.
Yeah, sort of a subtle reflection of that colonial education system trying to, assimilate African kids.
Mm.
Then, after his father died, he became the ward of Yongintaba Dalindibo, the Thembu region. And at the great place in Ukekazweni, he saw traditional African democracy in action.
How did that work?
Well, decisions were made through consensus. Every voice was heard. That really shaped his ideas about inclusive leadership. Then came university. Fort Hare, often called the Oxford of Africa. That's where he met key figures like Oliver Tambo, Robert Sobukwe, future allies.
But he didn't finish there, did he?
No, he didn't. He was expelled in 1940. He took part in a student boycott. It was actually over the quality of the food. But that act, that defiance, you could say was his first real political protest, a clear sign of things to come.
That's such a strong foundation for what came next. Which brings us, inevitably, to the struggle against apartheid. Maybe you can just clarify for everyone listening, what exactly was apartheid? How did it actually function day to day? It sounds just unbelievably oppressive.
It was. Apartheid literally means separateness in Afrikaans. It became official government policy in 1948 under the National Party.
Great.
But its roots, well, they go way back into the colonial era. Essentially, it was a system of institutionalized racial segregation. It classified everyone into rigid racial groups: white, black, colored, Indian, and that dictated everything: where you lived, worked, who you could marry.
Everything.
Everything. The whole point was to keep the white minority in power and ensure a steady stream of cheap black labor. Black South Africans, who were, 80% of the population, were pushed into these impoverished areas called homelands or Bantustans, basically made foreigners in their own country.
And they had to carry passes.
Exactly. The infamous dompas. You had to have it on you all the time. If you were caught in a white area without it, straight to jail. It was utterly dehumanizing.
What about the psychological side, that constant reminder you're second class? How did Mandela's defiance fight that?
That's a great question. The insidious goal was to make people internalize inferiority, to break their spirit. Mandela's defiance, even early on as a lawyer, was about asserting dignity. It showed that even under crushing laws, the human spirit couldn't be totally extinguished. His own real awakening, you could say, intensified when he moved to Johannesburg in '41. He worked as a mine security guard, then an articled clerk. He saw the daily grind of segregation up close.
And that's when he joined the ANC.
Right. In 1944, he joined the African National Congress, which had been around since 1912. But he, along with Tambo and Walter Sisulu, felt the ANC needed to be more radical. So they co-founded the ANC Youth League. They pushed the main ANC away from just petitions towards more direct action, boycotts, strikes, civil disobedience. That became the official program of action in 1949.
Leading to the Defiance Campaign.
Exactly. 1952. Mandela was the national volunteer-in-chief. The idea was simple. Peaceful volunteers deliberately break apartheid laws, get arrested, show the injustice.
It worked.
It raised massive awareness, Over 8,000 people were arrested. It put apartheid on the international map and really established Mandela as a major leader.
But even with that nonviolent pressure, things took a dark turn. Sharpeville, 1960, the massacre. And then the ANC being banned, it feels like they were pushed into a corner. This leads to that really difficult shift, doesn't it? The move to armed resistance. Here's where it gets really interesting. The painful decision to move from nonviolence to armed resistance and what that tells us about desperation. So in 1961, reluctantly, he co-founds Umkhonto we Sizwe MK, the armed wing.
Yes, and their initial strategy was very specific. Sabotage, targeting government buildings, power lines, transport links, things, not people. They were trying hard to avoid civilian
It
casualties.
wasn't about embracing violence itself.
Not at all. It was a strategic shift because the government had shut down every other avenue. Nonviolence for Mandela was a powerful tactic, but not an unshakable dogma when faced with total state brutality. He said it himself, didn't he? Something like, "We had no choice after the government showed it wouldn't listen to peaceful protests."
Chilling. It's a stark reminder of how systems can dehumanize and why we need to be vigilant. Of course, that path led directly to his arrest, August 5th, 1962, near Hawick.
Initially, just a 5-year sentence. But then came the raid on Liliesleaf Farm, the ANC's secret HQ. They found documents.
Which led to the Rivonia trial.
Exactly, October 1963. Suddenly, he and the others were facing the death penalty. Sabotage, conspiracy.
And that's when he gave that incredible speech, "I am prepared to die."
April 20th, 1964, from the dock.
Yeah.
Just laying out his vision. "I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society. It is an ideal for which I am prepared to die." Utterly powerful.
He got life imprisonment, though, June 12th, 1964. Escaped the death sentence, partly due to international outcry, right?
Yes, immense international pressure played a huge role, and so began the long years on Robben Island.
18 years there, wasn't it? From 64 to 82. What was life actually like?
Brutal. Just brutal. Thin mats to sleep on, terrible food, hard labor in the lime quarry. That's what ruined his eyesight, working in that glare. Isolation. Harshness. But here's the amazing part. Mandela and the others, they turned it into what they called Mandela University.
A university, in prison.
Absolutely. It wasn't just about survival, it was resistance. They held secret classes, shared knowledge, debated politics. They kept their minds sharp, prepared themselves. It showed incredible foresight. And even there, Mandela's leadership qualities were clear. He mediated disputes, he negotiated with the warders for small improvements, he kept this strict personal discipline, and over time, his dignity, his refusal to be broken, it earned him this grudging respect, even from some of the guards.
It's just staggering, that mental fortitude. Were there times, though, when that university spirit faltered? What were the personal struggles in keeping hope alive for so long?
Oh, definitely. The psychological pressure was enormous. There were absolutely moments of despair, deep frustration, the constant threat of punishment, the guards trying to create divisions, health problems, keeping hope alive for himself and others. I think it came down to incredible inner discipline, yes, but also that clear vision he held onto and his commitment to his fellow prisoners. Unity was everything. He knew that. So he worked tirelessly at it, even mediating tiny squabbles, because every small win built collective strength.
While he's inside, demonstrating this resilience, his image outside is growing, isn't it? He becomes this global symbol.
He really does, a symbol of apartheid's injustice. The longer he stayed in prison, the more potent that symbol became.
And the Free Nelson Mandela campaigns kick off globally.
Huge campaigns. Sanctions against South Africa started to bite. There were concerts, that massive one at Wembley in 1988 for his 70th birthday. Apparently 600 million people watched that.
Incredible. So the pressure just kept building and building.
Relentlessly. By the late 80s, the apartheid government was cornered. Releasing Mandela wasn't just a moral issue anymore. It was becoming a political necessity.
So what does this all mean? How does a man survive and even thrive under such conditions? And what role did the world really play in all this?
Well, the world's role was fundamental. That global pressure gave the anti-apartheid movement legitimacy. It isolated the regime economically and politically. It gave Mandela, even locked away, a kind of moral leverage. Eventually, the government had to face facts. They couldn't run the country without him, not with the sanctions crippling them. So his release wasn't really mercy. It was a strategic calculation. It shows you sometimes collective moral outrage can shift the actions of even deeply entrenched regimes.
And then that moment, February 11th, 1990, after 27 years walking free from Victor Verster prison.
Watched live around the world. It was electric. Start of the end for apartheid.
President F.W. de Klerk made the decision. Why then? Was it just pragmatism, or was there a moral element too?
Likely a mix of both. The system was collapsing economically, and it was morally bankrupt in the eyes of the world. De Klerk saw the writing on the wall.
And Mandela's first words, from Cape Town City Hall.
Powerful. Showed his focus immediately. Reconciliation, yes, but also justice. He said, I stand before you not as a prophet, but as a humble servant of you, the people. Acknowledging the sacrifices of others. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this period of negotiation wasn't just about politics, it was about holding a nation together at its most fragile point. Those years, 90 to 94, were incredibly tense, fraught negotiations. Mandela was the key ANC negotiator, having to balance the massive hopes of his people with, the practical steps needed for a peaceful change.
And he and de Klerk got the Nobel Peace Prize for it.
In 1993, yes, recognizing their joint efforts to dismantle apartheid peacefully, but it nearly all fell apart, didn't it? After Chris Hani was assassinated in April 93, the country was on a knife edge.
I remember that, what stopped it tipping over.
Mandela. He went on television, appealed for calm. His moral authority at that moment was immense. Many say he single-handedly prevented civil war right then. Can you imagine the weight on his shoulders?
Unbelievable pressure. And that authority carried him into the presidency. April 27th, 1994, the first Democratic election.
Amazing scenes. People of all races queuing for hours to vote together for the first time. A huge victory for the ANC.
And then May 10th, Inauguration Day, Nelson Mandela, president of South Africa, at 77.
The world's oldest first-time president, yeah. And his speech, just unforgettable, promising never, never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another.
His whole presidency seemed defined by reconciliation, didn't it? Even forming a government of national unity with former enemies, de Klerk as his deputy president.
Yeah, it was audacious.
Yeah.
But it stemmed from his core belief. If you want to make peace with your enemy, you have to work with your enemy. Then he becomes your partner.
And a key part of that reconciliation process was the TRC, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
Yes. Established in 1995, led by Archbishop Desmond Tutu, its job was to investigate human rights abuses under apartheid. Crucially, it offered a platform for victims to share their stories, but also offered amnesty to perpetrators if they gave full disclosure.
Amnesty, not punishment.
That was Mandela's firm belief. Truth and forgiveness were the path to healing, not retribution. He famously said, we chose to forgive rather than to demand retribution, to move forward rather than to remain prisoner of our past.
But that focus on political healing, you mentioned earlier there was criticism about economic inequality. Did prioritizing reconciliation maybe leave some of those deeper economic scars untouched? What's the debate now?
That's a really crucial and ongoing debate. Yes, his government achieved a miraculous, peaceful transition to democracy. But critics do argue that the focus on political unity perhaps overshadowed the need for more radical economic change. Many of the economic structures of apartheid, the vast inequalities in wealth and land, they largely remained. So the question today is, was that the necessary price for peace? Or could more have been done to address economic justice, even if it risks stability? It really highlights the complexity of his legacy. This raises an important question. Can a nation truly reconcile without also addressing deeply entrenched economic disparities? It's a tough one.
It certainly is. But even with those complexities, his influence didn't stop when he left office, did it? He stepped down voluntarily after one term.
In 1999, aged 80, which was itself a powerful statement, setting a precedent for democratic transitions in Africa.
And he stayed active.
It's very active. Through the Nelson Mandela Foundation, focusing on education, health, rural development, and perhaps most courageously, he became a leading voice in the fight against AIDS, especially after his own son Magatho died from an AIDS-related illness in 2005. He spoke openly about it, breaking down stigma.
He truly became a global elder statesman.
Absolutely. Mediating conflicts, championing children's rights, speaking out against injustice globally. He had this wonderful way of describing leadership, too.
The shepherd analogy.
Exactly. A leader is like a shepherd. He stays behind the flock, not realizing that all along they're being directed from behind. It speaks volumes about empowering others.
And then came Mandela Day.
Yes. The UN declared his birthday, July 18th, Nelson Mandela International Day in 2009. It's a call to action, inspired by his words, "It is in your hands now." The idea is the 67 minutes campaign, do 67 minutes of community service, 1 minute for each year of his public service. It perfectly reflects his belief that,
And
what's the quote?
what counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we have made to the lives of others.
That will determine the significance of the life we lead. Beautifully put.
His autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom, also captures so much of his philosophy, written partly in secret on Robben Island, wasn't it?
That's right. And his core principles shine through. Non-racialism, judging people by character, not color, democracy, but influenced by that African idea of consensus, reconciliation, overcoming bitterness. He said if he hadn't left his bitterness behind, he'd still be in prison, metaphorically speaking.
And Ubuntu, that idea of interconnectedness.
Fundamentally important. Our shared humanity.
His words just resonate so strongly. Education is the most powerful weapon.
Which you can use to change the world, absolutely.
No one is born hating another person.
People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love.
Hmm.
So profound.
And that simple, powerful mantra, it always seems impossible until it's done.
Sums up his life, really.
Then eventually his health failed. December 5th, 2013, he passed away, aged 95.
President Zuma announced it. Our nation has lost its greatest son. And the global reaction was just immense, a huge outpouring of grief and respect.
The state funeral in Kwanu, world leaders gathered, Obama's eulogy, describing how Mandela bent the arc of the moral universe toward justice.
A fitting tribute.
So what does this all mean for us today here at the Urban Herald as we continue our work in 2025?
Well, his legacy is massive, isn't it? It goes way beyond South Africa. His approach to leadership, prioritizing reconciliation, it's influenced peace processes all over the world. Yes, there are those valid critiques about economic transformation, the inequalities that remain. That highlights the sheer difficulty of transitional justice. But maybe that makes his example even more relevant now. In our polarized world, his message of dialogue, forgiveness, perseverance, human dignity, it feels more vital than ever. He showed that even the deepest divides can be bridged, and as we face global challenges, climate change, inequality, conflict, that the philosophy of Ubuntu, our interconnectedness, it offers a powerful ethical guide, doesn't it?
It really does. His life is just this incredible story of triumph, hope over despair, love over hate. And the legacy isn't just political change in one country, it's the example he set for all of us. To overcome bitterness, forgive enemies, build a future on what connects us. Those core principles, justice, equality, reconciliation, Ubuntu, they feel so urgent right now. And I keep coming back to that powerful quote. For to be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others. So maybe the question for everyone listening is, what does Nelson Mandela's legacy mean to you today? How can we apply those principles of reconciliation and justice to the challenges we're facing right now in 2025 and looking ahead? Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into human dignity and resilience right here on the Urban Herald.